Well, a big hello to everyone and welcome to the inaugural episode, I guess we would call it, of HereticalsCast. This is
Mhm.
number one. We did have a number 0 yesterday, but we're not going to count that. That was more a bit of just a general chat about what's going on. This is what we're going to officially call the first one. So everyone, welcome to the first episode of HereticalsCast. Today,
Wow.
I am very, very happy to have not only a very good friend of the channel, but a very good friend of mine here to join me to talk about. We've got a few things to talk about. Claire S. Bear, what is going on, Claire?
Well, first, thank you. You don't know how excited I am about this. Like, I'm very, very excited about this.
I know I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. The fact that you'd have me here on your premiere episode of a whole new show, like, I don't get to do that often. It's kind of excited. And then
may as well get the best out of the way first, I reckon. Eh?
Yeah. So you get me a little tongue tied with all that like nice stuff you said about me. Like, we'll just get it out of the way. Everybody knows that on my channel we call him number 8, like the epitome of the best asshole in the world. Like, that's it.
Well, you
He's
see,
number 8.
I'm doing this on purpose because I'm known as an asshole over on your channel. I figure if I'm really, really nice on mine, everyone's just going to think you're making things up about me.
It's true. It's true.
See?
But he is
part of my nefarious plan.
He is my, well, I could clear that up. He's the kindest asshole I know. He's my favorite asshole. Like,
you know what? I'm going to take that as a win. Favorite asshole.
That is you are. That's why you're number 8, the great number 8. That's how we refer to you, the great number 8, my mate.
Great
exactly, just like that. We rhyme it all out.
Hey, mate, love it. It all rhymes.
It does.
All rhymes. I'm very good with that.
Well, all kidding aside, I'm happy. So, like, wow, this is like awesome, like a fun kind of show. Like, what?
It is. It's something a little bit different from, well, I don't know if it's so much different because we kind of, the last couple of 6-packs we did were kind of going along this line. I think there was only so much of the previous content I used to do that I think it kind of, I don't know, it just sort of felt like it just felt like we were going around in circles, repeating the same thing.
But it's tough.
It was fun. Yeah. It was fun though, and I think it was always more about the people that were on talking, and those sort of connections and relationships, and I think that was the important thing. But I think some of the topics got a bit stale. So hopefully by sort of keeping up with what's going on in the world and some interesting conversations with different people, we can have some fun. So we've got a couple of things we're going to talk about today, and I guess we'll jump right into it. There's a trial that you've been following. Now, I'm just going to really give myself a disclaimer here. I know absolutely nothing about this trial. Now, maybe that's because I am where I am in the world, and it's not the news here that it is in the US. But I know that Claire's been following it intensely. And her Twitter feed has kind of been filled with all these comments about what's going on. Now, funnily enough, when we spoke yesterday, I said, hey, I know nothing about this trial, so I'm going to get you to do a TLDR. I'm going into this blind. As I'm flicking through Netflix, it comes up with a Netflix show on this. I'm just like, okay, so hang on. So this thing is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
All right. So okay. So first of all, I'm looking at the name. And is it pronounced murder?
It's murder, like daw, like DAW, but everybody mispronounces it. And I often on my channel call him Alex Murder. Like, I get all tongue-tied.
Now is it a murder trial? Straight up.
It is absolutely a murder trial.
Okay,
but
so
it's so much more.
So it's the murder.
It's the murder.
Murder. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go with the accent and just say that I've messed it up. Okay, so all right, so
and if Bearded Heretic doesn't show up, I'll probably say it correct for the rest of the night. But I'll warn you, you might have to edit me. Once he gets here, he starts calling him murderer, and then I just lose it.
We're live, so there's no editing. This is
then
it's incidentally it will go up on we've got a few people watching us here live on YouTube. It will be uploaded to Rumble, Spotify, a few other places. So,
cool.
let's jump into the trial. So, okay, so first of all, I'm going to ask the obvious question: who was murdered?
Okay, who was murdered? But first, I'll let you say the reason it's such a huge huge deal, is because who it's about. It's about Alex Murdaugh. Richard Alexander Murdaugh comes from a very connected, very well-known family in South Carolina in Colleton County. They come from a family of judges, solicitors, very legal oriented, all the way back, politically connected, big deal. Money, influence, Murdaugh was the name in that county. Like whatever they say goes. Very connected. But there's also in these kinds of connected families with much what people might look as entitlement and richness and influence, there's a lot of shadow. There are multiple other cases involved besides this murder that happened that all kind of tie together. But the one he's on trial for right now, Alex Murdaugh is on trial for murdering his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, on June 7th of 2021.
Okay, so hang on. So it's his wife and son. So how are we talking an adult son or young son? How old's the
I
son?
believe his son was 20. I can be corrected, but he was an adult, but he was a young adult. He was a young adult. Okay. But here's where it gets twisted. His young adult son, who was just murdered, was about to be indicted and face charges for a boat accident that happened the year before where a young woman died in the boating accident. He was driving a Murdaugh family boat with a group of his friends. He took his older brother's ID, purchased some alcohol, was drunk out of his mind, along with several others drinking, and she did not survive the boating accident. There's been a
So
trial.
she was on the boat with the son.
With her boyfriend and several friends. It was a whole group of friends. Her name was Mallory Beach, and the anniversary of her death was Friday. That case there was coming to a head right before the murders. There was the biggest thing about Alex Murdaugh is, well, let me just drop the bomb. He's got 100 charges for financial claims against him: insurance fraud, bank fraud, impersonating, credit card fraud, stealing from his partner, stealing from his family, stealing from his clients. 100 charges and 18 criminal indictments related to financial crimes.
So with this Alex Murdaugh, is he a so you mentioned the family is very well connected. Is he a solicitor or a judge himself, or is he in business?
He was disbarred shortly after the murders. When it all came to light 2 months later, the financial crimes started coming up to light. The motive in this case is directly related to the pressure of everyone finding out that he was who he really was over the 20 years that he stole from everybody. Everybody. When I say everybody, that's not light. I mean everybody. And as we get to talk about it, you'll know what I mean. Not a single person in his life did he not steal from or lie to. Not a single one. Okay.
All right. So I guess we'll start with I guess if we're going to go on a timeline. So the son has gotten drunk, taken a boat, used his older brother's ID to purchase alcohol. Look, I guess stuff that isn't necessarily uncommon for dumb
Not
shit.
really. You would think it's
kids do.
normal, like
But
it's kind of
also
shenanigans
with
of
big,
a
obviously
overseer.
consequences are
Obviously.
a thing, and
That's
consequences
where it
are a
gets
big thing
messy.
here.
That's where it gets messy because the Murdaugh family was treated different than everybody else in regards to the police and everyone else. The families of for the rest of the people involved in the accident weren't allowed close to the boat. There was they weren't getting the same information. Alcohol tests were not done. Delays were done. Nobody got charged. There seems to be a big difference in the county as how people are looking at it. There's a strong belief by all the citizens and the people involved in the case that Alex Murdaugh pretty much used his influence to protect his child.
Which would be expected for, I guess, most parents.
You could. If you have the influence, why not? You've got the parental instinct. It's
I
just how
remember
they
a
did it.
similar. I remember a similar thing that happened years ago with Hulk Hogan's son, Nick Hogan, who he killed a friend whilst being an idiot behind the wheel. And there was a similar sort of question about influence there. But anyway, that detracts. So okay, so the son was the son charged with anything?
Just right before the murders, it came down that he was going to be indicted. It took quite a while of back and forth. There were civil suits, though, in the meantime. And the reason that they decided to actually come forth is that the civil suit was exposing some really shady behavior to where the whole county was going to come up on, like, what the heck you doing here? It was going to get exposed. So there was it's like a little everything was coming to a head at the time as far as who Alex Murdaugh really was. He had a lot of pressure on him. At least that's what the state is presenting in the case. That morning of the murders, he also had a meeting at his partners with his chief financial officer, who actually told him, we kind of know that you stole $792,000 worth of client fees because we contacted your best friend who you said has it. And he said he gave it to you
So
quite some time
that's
ago.
not an insignificant amount.
It's not, but we actually, when we get down to it, are up to $10 million in stolen fees from his own
Whoa.
partners, from his family, from
Wow.
people. He actually had the death of a housekeeper in his home. He sued the insurance company for over $4.3 million. He settled, and he gave the children of her $1,000, $100,000. Never told them about the settlement. They found out in the news media that he got a settlement for 4.3.
So hang on,
And they had to sue him
how does
for
he
it.
get a settlement for
Because
someone
when you're
else's?
an attorney and you're dealing with, especially in insurance and civil suits, and you're going to understand this one.
Oh, so
People
hang on.
don't understand the law. They turn over power authority to negotiate money instantly. And in order for them to put the money in a bank account for you, you have to give them power of attorney and X and X and X.
Yeah.
This
So
kid
hang on.
never questioned it.
Just to be clear,
Never
so what's
questioned
happened
it.
is they've engaged him to take on the insurance company. He's got a high
Exactly. They
settlement,
trusted
and
him.
then
They
this.
trusted him. And he fleeced them. The
Oh.
children of his own housekeeper who died on the presidency. Like, there's so much, Chris. Like, when I tell
So
you it's
from
insane,
what I'm hearing
it's
here, and we haven't got to the murders yet, but I'm thinking, regardless of what happens with the murders, this guy is spending the rest of his life in locked
oh,
up.
he's never getting out. He's in there. He's actually, because they can't find all of the money, he's going to be locked up. Almost every cent that he has already got liens on it, all his properties, everything. There are all these legal, there are like 20, there are the 18 indictments in Colleton County that Crichton Waters, who's the prosecutor in this case right now, the head prosecutor, he's prosecuting him for murder, but he also has everything on the financial crimes. And under 404B for prohibitive versus prejudicial, he was allowed to bring the financial crimes in to prove motive. It's really lit. Like, as a legal case, Chris, you would be salivating if you were
It's
studying
sounding
right
like
now.
it. And for those who don't know, whilst I am a historian, I've actually made a big change, and I'm actually studying law now. Big 180 in my life. Big 180 in my life. This is part of the reason I'm able to do this at the time I'm able to do it now. Funnily enough, but so this kind of stuff, yeah. So this is sounding like a real juicy.
Well, in American law, 404B is really prohibitive versus prejudicial, which I'm sure you understand the terms. You can't bring in prior past crimes, okay, on anyone if it's going to be too prejudicial against the actual accused, unless it's for several little clauses like for state of mind, okay, or if it contributed actually to the crime in such a way. And the pressure is what Crichton Waters is putting forth of all of this knowledge coming forward because of that meeting on June 7th, the same day as the murder. Everything started to be unfolding at he was going to get discovered for the 20 years worth of stuff that he did that we all know about now. No one knew about it. No one knew about it at all, except for Alex Murdaugh.
Has he actually been convicted
7th.
of? Has he actually been convicted of?
He has given statements. He has
finance?
admitted to the Satterfield. He has admitted to defrauding Satterfield and doing insurance fraud and that's why he lost his license to practice law. His practice has been disbanded. They asked him to leave. They changed their name. They want nothing to do with them. And it was a family law firm that his great grandfather started. Like, he'd been booted. He'd been booted. Okay.
Yeah, well,
he has lost his best friend.
That's going to do it.
His best friend, Chris Wilson, they were friends forever. He was also attorney. He can't practice with him anymore either. He got on the stand and said, my best friend lied to me and I don't know who the heck he is anymore. Like, he lied about that original $792,000 that was the actual key to the fact that Alex knew the jig was up when he had that conversation. And it gets really emotional because his father was dying at the same time. And the conversation that they had kind of halted on June 7th because he got the phone call that his father was going in the hospital and it looked like really, really bad. So they like, there's
so
all
this
these
is the friend. This
friends.
is the friend's father.
No, not the friend's father, Alex's father. But everybody just stopped investigating on that time because the murders happened and his father died. Okay. So it gets worse though. Not only do we have murders, he's up on charges for murders, but 2 months after the murders, during this 2-month time, he paid a friend of his because, well, I also have to tell you that not only did he steal for 20 years, he's got a 20-year addiction to painkillers and he's a drug addict. And that's one of the reasons he's stealing the money. And no one knew except for his family. He was going back and forth with his family about recovering and all. But he hired his cousin, who was also his drug dealer, to shoot him in the head on the side of the road so he could get the insurance money he claims for his older son, Buster, so that he would at least have a life. But when the cousin, Eddie Smith, would not actually go through with that act, he got the gun from him and he went to shoot himself and he only grazed his head. But he did go to the hospital and he did get the sympathy and he did kind of delay things again from coming to a head in the investigation with his law firm about finding out about the money.
This sounds
it sounds like a soap opera, doesn't it? Like,
this is like a season of Boston Legal right here.
It's like the whole series of Boston Legal, right?
Okay, so let's get to So on June 7, he's had this meeting with his business partners who have said, "Hey, we know that about this $790,000 that's been stolen."
He also knows that there's a meeting coming in on the Mallory Beach civil suit that Mark Tinsley, the other attorney, has asked for financial discovery, and he's hot under the collar. He's pushing the Murdaughs really hard. He knows they're up shady. He's claiming that they're paying people off. He wants immediate financial discovery, which would actually, that meeting was going to be on the 10th, 3 days later. So he's got that pressure that Mark could have gone to the judge and say, listen, I know he's got accounts everywhere because this is his life or whatever. If he pushed it enough, the judge could have ordered at that time that all of his accounting be exposed. And we would have found all the fake names that he had, under fake companies. He created special accounts representing himself through banking, through big banking and big people, that he was the head of some kind of company that he wasn't. Okay. And he got the other people involved in that are already in jail. Russell Lafitte, that helped him do that, like opened up the accounts, was head of that bank, is in jail. And Alex had to admit that he did it. And he's thrown his best friends and everybody else you could think of under the bus. Chris, his cousin, Eddie Smith, he hired him for $2 million to shoot him in the head. He gave testimony against Alex. Alex admitted that that's what he did, had to admit he attempted to commit insurance fraud for the money. So, of course, that policy is canceled now, and his son's like out the money, whatever, but never going to get it if his father dies now, because that's all under the thing. He had to admit to it all. So when you asked me, is he guilty of stuff? Periodically, he's been admitting to everything all along as the case has come up on the other people involved that he threw under the bus. He has had to admit certain things, like in the Satterfield case, where he admits he defrauded the insurance. And in the case of both Lafitte and Eddie Smith, where he has to admit fraud in how he got the money, what he did with the money, how he obtained it. It's pretty convoluted.
So it sounds like even if this guy, well, obviously he's probably going to jail, he's probably going to spend a good part of the rest of his natural life in and out of court.
He's never going to get out of jail, and he will be in court probably for the rest of his life, unless he settles, because he did something interesting during the trial. Just recently, he took the stand, Chris.
Okay, so let's jump back. Let's jump back. So we'll go to June 7. So he's gotten this news about, okay, we know there's some shady shit going on here. He's gotten the news that his father is dying. And then what? Okay, so at some point in this day, his wife and his son are murdered. So
Yes.
give us what's happened there, or what do we know?
According to the state, I'll give you both of their scenarios.
And
really
of course,
brief.
this is an ongoing trial, so this
and
is
it's an
all
ongoing. We're not accusing anything.
certainly,
It's just the evidence, little bits of it, and it's not even all of it, because I couldn't possibly tell you all of it if I had all night, because this has been going on for 4 weeks. I got 4 weeks worth of evidence to say in 3 minutes. So for the state, they are saying that they can prove through most of the data, the evidence is circumstantial. I'll tell you that right out off the bat. It's all cell phone data, GPS, OnStar. It's all text communications back and forth. It's all opportunity and means related. This is what we know according to the state so far, and what they've been able to show as far as evidence. That Alex Murdaugh contacted his wife and his son and wanted them both there at Moselle, which is where they were killed, on the property.
So what's Moselle? So that's where
Moselle is their family farm, their family ranch
now,
or farm. Okay.
There's the wife and the son
Mhm.
who have been murdered. There's another older son that we know of. Is that it?
He
as
has
far
an
as
alibi.
family?
He was many towns away. He was in
Oh, no,
Colombia.
but just
Yeah.
trying to get an idea of who's in the
Mhm.
family.
In the family is 2 sons. Buster is the
Yep.
oldest. Paul is under him. Buster was the apple of his mother's eye. Paul was the apple of his father's eye. Paul was gregarious. Buster is the toe the line, gonna be a lawyer, kind of like his dad. Buster is the one with perhaps a drinking problem. His friends say he had an altered personality that came out when he drank. They nicknamed it Timmy.
I've got a
But
few
he
friends like that.
was very charismatic. He was younger. He might have had some emotional issues. There were some issues with the girlfriend that came out. There are several documentaries out. One called Low Country, one kind called Dynasty something, and the other one, The Murdaugh Murders, which is on Netflix right now, that you could watch. But
I think that's the one that popped up for me.
yeah,
Yesterday
there's one on YouTube too. That's like 3. They're all have like 3 episodes each, and they all give like different versions. And some clips of it you'll see in each of them actually are part of the evidence. Some of the investigation, some of the locations, some of the actual interviews that were released. It's all in there. But
Now, incidentally, anyone who does want to watch it on YouTube, I'm going to be posting in the chat right now. I'm going to be posting the link to Claire's playlist for this, and we'll also be putting it in the description. So it isn't in the description right now, but it will go in the description after, wherever you are watching this.
Right.
So
And if you don't have time to watch all of it, because I'll tell you, it's almost 4 weeks now of 8 hours coverage every day. What we do is only talk during the breaks and lunch, and we talk with people like Godless Granny, who's a lawyer, What the Beck, who's a true crime fan, Petty Mango, who actually did a lot of research on all of the other crimes that he was out against, and all of the lawsuits that were. There's very, very helpful. I've had my friend MC Wrecker come up and talk about guns and stuff, because I don't know a lot about that, because I'm not really gun savvy. We've got people in the chat that talk about it. But what I want to tell you is it's all time stamped by the witnesses and by what happens every day. So you can go to the actual testimony that you might be more interested in, and you could probably get through it a lot quicker. There's also links to the interviews on some of them. There are links to articles that actually give timelines, just to make it more interesting. Some of the more videos that are not even mine that are out there, in regards to like Bearded and I talking about family annihilation, Dr. Silkman and I talking about he's a molecular scientist. And he actually was talking to me about the quality of evidence and things of that nature. He's also a true crime bro. So it's more than just a trial. Like, if you really want to know about it, there's a way to go.
Now, I have put a poll up in the chat for those who are with us live.
Can I vote?
So it's a real simple one. Is Alex guilty? So for those who aren't watching live, give us a comment. Give us a comment whether you think he's guilty or not, and what bit of evidence compels you more than anything.
You know why that's going to be hard to answer? Because of the evidence. Because I'll tell you what's missing. We know what the murder weapons were. We know they came from the property and that they were owned by the Murdaugh family. But they're missing.
Get to the murder.
Yeah, they're missing.
So he's called his wife.
He called his wife and his son there.
Meet me here at the property or home.
Okay.
And what's happened from there?
Okay. So he has them. This is the prosecution's case. He called them there. They're saying that because of the pressure or whatever, for some reason, he killed them. Then he left to see his mother. And this is Alex's story also. I was there. We all had dinner. I didn't go down to the kennels or anything. They were down at the kennels with the dogs. Paul was taking care of one of his friend's dogs. Paul made a Snapchat video of that dog and captured all three of their voices on it. Became the key piece of evidence in the case that Alex could not deny. But however, until recently, he was denying it. Until Friday, he was denying it, that he was never at the kennels. But they nailed him at the kennels. He has a whole elaborate story of going to his mother's. He has evidence that he was at his mother's. There are caretakers taking care of his mother, but the times are all off. He tells the caretaker, I was here for 40 minutes. Caretaker testifies, nope, it was 20. But he specifically told me that he was there for 45 minutes. And everybody's like, well, why are you telling the caretaker how long you were there? Like, there's evidence. People are giving evidence that he's trying to lead the investigation. We heard from everybody from SLED, which is a law enforcement agency in the area, that they got the feeling that he was adding information in, wasn't telling the truth, whatever. Everything seemed off. He did not become a suspect until August, when he was told that that video existed that put him at the time. He says he never went to the kennels at 8:49 p.m. at night when that video was taken.
So in June,
on the 7th.
So in June they're killed, but it's not until August that he's actually charged.
A suspect. He's not told he's
he's not even a suspect.
Because they're like, a person of interest is not exactly the suspect, right? But when they actually tell him that we think we have blood splatter and we think we've got your voice on a thing that says you're at the kennel. Are you sure you weren't at the kennel? That happened in August 21st, or August 12th rather, of 2021, 2 months later. And then that's when he became the suspect, and he gets arrested after that, after some more evidence is gathered. But he doesn't come clean about the kennel thing. He doesn't say, oh, I misremembered, like I was there. He waited until this Friday to tell them he lied about it. A year and a half later, he said, I lied to everybody about it. Of course I was there, because he couldn't go against it. But what we don't have is a gruesome scene. The son was shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the head. His back of his head was gone. Okay. It's brutal, the murders. The wife was shot 4 times, up close and personal. There's stipple. There's 2 weapons, both Murdaugh, a shotgun and a rifle, that are both owned by people in the Murdaugh family and have been used all over the property. They found so many shells all over the property of this weapon being used in the past in other events. So it makes the scene a little convoluted. It's a bloody, disgusting, horrible scene. It's hard to imagine. They were both shot in the head, up close and personal, as the final shots, not the first shots.
Okay, so that's pretty nasty.
It is. We have text messages that say that Alec Murdaugh was under the gun with his family personally, both Maggie and Paul, because Paul is telling his dad, Mom found your pills. Okay, that also happened right then. Okay, Maggie's also not staying at the house. Okay, Maggie's also talking to people that she would like the Mallory Beach case to be settled. She's tired of being ostracized. She's tired of fighting. She would rather do with less. It's not about money. Let's just go forward. Paul's going to get indicted that week. There's a lot of stress. They're saying the stress made him do it, that he snapped, and then he covered it up. The guns are missing.
So would I be right to understand as well that so the family of Mallory who is suing, why were they suing Alex? Because to me it would sound as though it's the son Paul who...
They're suing them all. They're suing Alex, Paul, Buster. Alex and Maggie got sued because it was their boat. And also, pretty much, they were insinuating that Alex interfered with the investigation afterwards. Okay, Buster is getting sued because it's his ID that got the alcohol that they were all drinking on the boat. Okay, Paul's being sued for actually the wrongful death and manslaughter.
Okay,
and also the company, the convenience place that sold them the alcohol, they are being sued, and their parent company is being sued because of lack of procedure in how that ID was used.
Okay. Because to my okay, I guess I can see that. So because my initial thought was he's killed the son to stop the lawsuit that would dig into his finances.
It could it yes and no, especially if the son wanted to settle and they would have to give up a lot of money because where are they going to get the
But the
money?
son,
And
but the
they might
son would have
find
to
out
have the
about
money.
the stealing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Settlement agreements, you have to go through financial disclosure also with the court.
mm,
See,
yeah.
financial disclosure seemed to be something he was avoiding a lot. And I could see
Okay.
why if he was stealing for 20 years and nobody knew about it yet. You know what I
Now,
mean?
incidentally, the poll that is up in the chat, we're sitting at 100% for guilty. So
Yeah, the
there's
thing is,
not a lot of
that's
Alex fans here.
no, and you know what? Most people do think he's guilty, but a lot of us think that they may not be able to prove it. The jury may not get there as far as the evidence. Because all they have is like a non-tarp raincoat-like thing that has GSR on the inside of it that he possibly could have wrapped the guns in to hide them, but the guns are missing. That was found. There is actually no blood spatter on him whatsoever. When he actually called 911 a little after 10 o'clock when he returned. They are saying that the murders occurred sometime between 8:49 and like 9:04 or 2, something like that. That is what the pathologist is like narrowing it down to. And based on the cell phones, when both Paul and Maggie's cell phones went silent, they were both very active on their phones, and all of a sudden there's nothing. So,
Okay.
and then that's also the time of the video puts Alex Murdaugh on the scene within 15 minutes of the murder. Right there. His voice identified by every witness that stepped up. He was on the scene. He hid that from everyone until Friday.
Okay. So obviously he's pled not guilty. So okay.
He
So
pled not guilty. He's
we
fighting it.
fast forward to August.
Mhm.
So he becomes a suspect at that point. How long until he's charged?
I don't know the actual charge date, but I don't think it was much farther after that. And then it's
Okay.
been a while since we've actually come to the trial.
And without
Actually,
knowing
because there
the
were
I guess
so many charges coming up. There's the murder investigation. There's all everything starts coming to a head. Don't forget, in that August, the reason they're talking to him is he has the side of the road incident where he's also in the hospital because there's a shot to his head and they think somebody shot him. So like here's the thing: Alex Murder has been saying all along that somebody was out to silence him about the in retaliation to the Mallory Beach incident for Mallory's death, and that everybody was upset about that. And he's
okay.
actually still to this day is claiming that somebody else came up there, two people must have came near and shot them, that he doesn't know anything about it.
Which could be, which under regular circumstances would be reasonable to suspect that, considering what's going on, there would be other people with
And I'd
motive.
be with you if there was one
Mm,
scrap of evidence that says another person was there. First of all, it's a kennel full of dogs who didn't react to any stranger being anywhere on the property.
mm.
He would have heard, and Alex actually testified to that. That the dogs, he said, why would the dogs react? There wasn't anybody there they didn't know. He said that. So that how can you say that like people showed up and did they like not? He claims to be sleeping in the house when he was actually at the kennel. People are saying, well, how did he get so clean? Well, there's testimony that he used the kennel hose because the hose was not where it was. There was water all over the kennel where there not normally is, and that's all based by the person who takes care of the kennel twice a day for him. That's testimony direct from him where the water puddled, where it didn't. It looks like things were hosed off. He did take a shower. There are some staging efforts in the house. There's a lot of actually it's more Alex Murdaugh's own words that are doing him in and the
Mm.
way he keeps changing his story.
So it sounds as though there's a lot of circumstantial evidence
There is. There
without having
definitely is.
that hard evidence.
The
Okay,
best
so
evidence is that there are no defensive wounds on Maggie or Paul, and that they were
mm,
shot with weapons right there from their own property. And that
okay,
the only one, this I'll put it to you this way. When you look at all the evidence, it is too much for me to give you all of it.
mm,
Literally, the only person who had access to the crime scene before, during, and after in that window of opportunity was Alex Murdaugh. There's not a single scrap of evidence of any other DNA, any other footprint, any other tire track of any other vehicle besides the story that he's telling anywhere around. Period.
okay. Now I'm going to throw to, and I could be going on a bit of a tangent here, but the other son, Buster, what's Buster's position been on all of this?
Buster looks a little non-committal. He supported his father. He testified for his father. The family is sticking together that they don't think that he did it. They are finding out. They just found out Friday he lied to their face. At least that's what they're all saying. That they just found out. I don't know if it's really true that they didn't know or not, but they are saying they didn't know. And they know that that's his voice on the kennel. And they didn't know until they heard it right there in the trial that he was at the kennel at that time. Because he's been lying about it the whole time.
But you would have thought that would have, like his lawyers would have known about that in advance. I mean, wouldn't that be evidence?
Everybody knew about it, yes. But he's saying that Alex never talked to them about it, never told them. They were going to deny it, I guess, try to.
Okay.
Because now they got the cell data of it. They know the exact time. They know there's no wiggle room out of it. So it became more of a big thing, you know.
All right. So this is obviously an ongoing case. What's his defense been?
His defense has been.
Oh, actually, sorry. I probably should ask, whereabouts in the case are we currently? So this
the
is
defense settled
for
today.
me, it's the 28th of February.
Yeah.
For you, it's the 27th of February.
Yep.
So we're end of February for those who are watching down the track. So where are we at today?
Well, it started in the beginning of February, at the end of January. They did jury selection, everything. We started right today. The defense just start that they finished. The defense put their case forward. They brought experts to contest the other experts, the forensic, especially the forensic pathologist, and also the crime scene investigator that actually tied what the body said to the crime scene. They brought 2 experts on to challenge that. And then they brought on the brother who was helping with the investigation. They brought on Buster Murdaugh himself. They brought on a housekeeper to say why, actually a caretaker housekeeper to say why Alex wanted to visit his mother so late at night, because that was one of the other pieces of evidence. Like, he never goes at night because she's got Alzheimer's and she's sleeping. But this housekeeper testified that she did contact family to come because she was upset during the day. And so, there was a lot, but basically they're saying that they're contesting the forensic pathologist's angle of the one wound to Paul on how his head became separate, like the back of his head became separated. They're trying to claim that it came from the top, and the state's forensic pathologist is saying no, it came from lower and went through the chin and came out the back of the head and blew the skull off. Unfortunately, for me, in listening to the evidence today and yesterday, Friday, their forensic pathologist was very good as far as explaining the opposite way he thought it happened. Unfortunately for him, the crime scene itself, blood spatter and things like that, don't exactly match what he's saying the body would have said. And he didn't get to examine the body. He's only looking at limited reports sent to him from the defense, and the state was able to prove that the defense didn't send them everything.
Okay.
So yeah.
Now I assume that. Well, actually, no. I shouldn't make the assumption. Did he get bail?
No.
Okay. No,
He's in jail.
I assumed he wouldn't have, considering everything.
Well, since he tried to shoot himself, and he owes he's a flight risk. They don't know where all the money is. He's like a flight risk for sure. Like, if you're looking at, I'm not kidding when I'm not exaggerating, 100 financial crimes besides the murder and 18 indictments that he's facing. Like, he's a flight risk for sure.
Oh yeah, of course he is. I mean, it's although to me it sounds as though he's not the most competent criminal. It sounds like he was, he probably got away with the financial crimes, and probably if it wasn't for the investigations because of the death, that he may have gotten away with them. Although these things always have a way of coming out.
I would say if not for the murders, the financial crimes would have eventually come out because of all the lawsuits that were coming forward, the civil lawsuits, not so much criminal. But that one, the Mallory Beach civil suit, would have blown up his practice anyway, but probably not as quick. He could have fought it. And I would throw this challenge to you. I understand why when you hear all about this, why you would say he's not so clever, but I want you to go watch his testimony and see him as a lawyer, and I think you're going to see a whole different person. For me, this is the most manipulative person I have ever seen hit a stand ever. And actually, it took prosecution quite a long time to expose him till you saw the lawyer come out and you could actually watch him manipulate the jury and watch him change his story to fit the evidence he sat there and listened to for 3 weeks. He literally tailored his testimony and changed all the key things to combat every single thing he heard during the course of the trial. It was fascinating. It would make a great psychological and legal study in the future.
Well, I'd say there's probably a good chance that because I don't spend enough time reading cases and stuff now, so I might as well go back and do this one.
No, I'm just saying.
I'll go back and have a look through the playlist. Definitely.
But I mean, just take his testimony. His testimony was a few hours you hit it here and there, but even a few minutes of it, you might be able to pick up on it. He does not actually. He seems quite intelligent. He's got a fantastic memory. He's almost photogenic. He's quite clever, and he's been running his case. It's obvious. He leaves the courthouse with tons of files every day back to the court, back to the jail that they have to carry.
Well, I mean, I guess if you think about it, I mean, he's a lawyer, and this is going to be his sole focus. He is going. I mean, a lot of lawyers, they'll have cases, but they'll have other things happening at the same time, and other things happening in life. Whereas he would just be devoting 100% of his time to this, and understandably so. Understandably. But I'm just going to do a quick hello to everyone in the chat. Sorry, I haven't really had the chance to go through the chat and sort of say hi to everyone. But it's good to see there's a lot of familiar faces in the chat, a lot of new faces too, which is pretty cool. Probably a lot that Claire's brought over, I'd say.
I would say those are some murder minions right there. When you mention murder in this trial, like they've been following me everywhere. They're really cool too. Yeah,
and now they get to hear a simpleton from the other side of the world ask dumb questions.
No, it's actually refreshing. We've been bringing lots of people. We bring regular, everyday people up to talk about it. We want to know what everybody says. Yourself included, Chris.
Now, not many people have called me regular every day. So
no, I usually don't. I call you number 8, the great me.
The great number 8. The great number 8. So it is good to see everyone who is in the chat and following.
I'm so happy to see Lissy and Grumpy and Godless Gomer. Like I haven't seen you guys in forever. It's like really nice.
We will sort of six pack out soon. By the way, we'll sort out for those who don't know. Six pack's a bit of a panel show that I think we're well over 100 episodes into it now. But it's just kind of where the idea was 6 people get together, have a couple of drinks and try and solve the problems of the world. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we talk shit. Sometimes it kind of goes in weird tangents. Sometimes they go for an hour. Sometimes I think the longest we ever had was about 6 hours, which was
wow. I missed that one. That was before me. I will tell you guys, like I showed up one day and I never left. It's that much fun. It's like it's that.
Well, I remember when you originally came on as a guest, and you came highly recommended. And okay, well, we'll get this.
I think Polymathic Jen. Everybody knows Jen, right? From Jen's Little Corner. Yeah, she found me, and we did the women. We did atheist women on six pack. That's what we did.
That's right. Yeah. I'm just like, hey, this Claire person's cool. She can come on regular six pack, and that's it. We haven't let her go ever since.
You know what it was? I passed the drop bear. Initiation. I let him have a go on me in public, and then in the back room, good. I'm from Jersey. I didn't really fall for that shit, didn't you? That was it. We became friends. Because I fell for it on screen.
The drop bear has fooled many an American tourist.
No,
but
not
the American tourists have kind of become switched onto it now. So we've kind of had to. The Chinese tourists do cop it, which is really good because Chinese Australians get right in on the whole drop bear thing. I think they actually, like when I say the Chinese Australians get right in on it, they are convincing. They will look straight in the face, and you'll see Chinese tourists kind of walking around with their heads up, looking out for these drop bears that are going to drop.
To this day, they still have to in my Discord. There were people in there that terrorized me with drop bears for the longest time about that. It became a running joke. It was really funny.
I remember that. Yeah. It's probably how I got the number 8.
Pretty
But
much.
yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
It
no,
also,
it is
yeah.
good to see everyone.
Yeah.
It's good to. I love doing that. It's just refreshing to have
Mm-hmm.
conversations,
It is.
and it's funny. I often think what a lucky period of time we live in, because I mean, for you and I to, I mean, I'm sitting here in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and you're there in New Jersey. We're completely opposite ends of the world.
Upside
Um,
down and all. Yep.
yeah, we would never ever have met under normal
Mm-mm.
circumstances.
No.
Um, but here we are able to converse with each other
Mm-hmm.
like this.
And we have actually
What
talked about some really good stuff too. Like I think you and I did
oh yeah.
Twitter and Elon Musk and like bringing back all the like any like pro
That
con situation you could
you
think
know what, that it was
Chris and
that
I have talked about.
the abortion conversation that we had over on
Yeah.
your channel, the
Mm-hmm.
pro-life, pro-choice
Mm-hmm.
conversation, that is probably one of the most thought-provoking conversations I've had. It's probably one of the best online conversations. Well,
Mm-hmm.
not even just one of the best online conversations, just one of the best conversations I've had that really sort of got my brain ticking. Opened me
Mm-hmm.
up to why people think what they think, and it just, yeah, we always have these
It's a hard
conversations.
conversation to have, and I like
It
having the
is.
hard ones, but I try to do it, and I think this is why you and I get along so well because I think you approach it the same way. We do believe that all these things need to be talked about, but they need to be talked about in a manner where all sides are respected. Like, and
Mm.
that if you're going to have an opinion about something, you have to listen to the other side. Not only does it validate your opinion in the long run, and you can actually challenge yourself to find the actual evidence or the real belief that you have, but by listening to the other person, you're actually not closing down all the other possibilities. It can only strengthen you. And I think you believe
And
that
I think
yourself. Yeah.
having these conversations outside of the black and white, where you must take a
Mm-hmm.
firm stance either way, like
Right.
I think that's something that, I think in any issue that has political connotations, it seems to be that you've got these loud activists on both sides who have just got this black and white, no gray, no middle ground kind of stands. But when normal people like you and I, who can sit on opposite sides of the
Mm-hmm.
fence on a particular topic, but realistically are a reasonably, we're not extremists.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yeah.
have that reasonable conversation. You can understand the other side, and I think it's good to
Mm-hmm.
have those voices out there, the voices that can listen to the other side
Mm-hmm.
and respectfully engage, even if there's no um, firm agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a debate, but it's, I
Mm-hmm.
think, too many of these idiotic activists on both sides of most
Yeah.
arguments.
We both
You know,
we both don't like extremists at all
no,
in
no,
anything. In anything. Yeah.
it's frustrating. Like, it's for,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people who regularly watch will know politically where I stand, but for those who don't, I'm on the right. I'm a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's,
Yeah, but there's
I'm
such a thing
socially
as
fairly liberal.
reasonable conservative. Like you're
Oh,
not like in
absolutely.
America. What?
There's
Yeah.
reasonable everything. But then
Mm-hmm.
I see some of the arguments that come out from people on my side, and it's just so
Mm-hmm.
extreme. But the arguments they're making, these extreme arguments, they're not combating the opinions of regular people on the
Mm-hmm.
other side. They're combating the extremists, the lunatics on the other side. So you've got these two extremist groups going at each other, feigning that they represent the majority, when the reality is both probably represent 5% of their side.
They do.
And the
And it's
rest of
like,
us
mm-hmm.
just sit in the middle, just,
Mm-hmm.
almost feeling obliged to take a side on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain issues, especially on the right, that, because where I stand, particularly on religion,
Mm-hmm.
but where I stand generally socially, I ain't going with some of the, like, I'm just not even going near some of these things.
What I would say, like you said, that the abortion content was like one of the best you had. The one that stands out the most with me with you was our freedom of speech
Hmm.
discussion, and it was part of the Elon Musk thing, I think.
Yep.
And the most critical thing for me was that you were coming at it like freedom of speech doesn't have parameters. Like freedom of speech is freedom of speech, period. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, every single person has a boundary. on freedom of speech, and everyone has to actually honor that and find out where the damage level is that you will accept that freedom of speech can go to without consequence. And during that conversation, we actually proved it to each other. Do you remember what it was about?
I know that I think we discussed Alex Jones at that point.
We
I
did,
do
and we
remember
were
that.
all like, Alex Jones could do whatever he want, and I agreed with you, but he does get the consequences of being called what he gets
Absolutely.
called. But we actually talked about people who could actually hurt other people. When we came to the decision that boundaries actually exist, and we both agreed on it, it was the only thing we actually solidly agreed. It came into the discussion of MABs and people that are actually after children. And
Yeah.
whether they should could
Oh,
actually
yeah.
be able to
Absolutely.
promote
Yeah.
their lifestyle as acceptable to make it
Mm.
so that they couldn't, as a thing. And you were like, that's it. I didn't think you could
Yeah.
do it, but you actually got me to think about a boundary in freedom of speech. And that would be it right there.
And see, that was interesting, because where we ultimately, and you did change my mind,
Mhm,
because I was a bit of an absolutist on free
mhm.
speech,
Well, yeah, you
and
didn't
at
see
the end
that
of it,
it
I
can
said, you know
actually
what?
that
Yeah, you're
that
right.
speech itself could cause damage. I remember you coming into the conversation with the idea, their words, their speech, they're not going to cause damage. And it was my job to show you, no, this freedom of speech
Mm.
can be an idea that can cause a damage and real damage to real people. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I think ultimately where we probably differed, but not by much, was on where that line is, and
where
I
it
think that
is.
can be, I think it can be subjective for
I
people.
I think it's very personal, but I think the government, when it comes to acts of illegality, and acts of where you're going to actually cause a lot of damage to a lot of people, especially the vulnerable. I
Mm.
think that that's important, that line this is where we had the difference on whether that should be regulated in any way, or what consequences should be about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
We both agreed that cancel culture alone can't handle it because that gets too extreme. We both don't believe in cancel culture handling these kind of things. Like, I
No,
don't
see,
think,
see, the
yeah,
problem with cancel culture is that cancel culture has been hijacked by extremists.
it is. It is who's running the cancel culture that's the
Yeah.
problem. It's like maybe the issue maybe he does
Well,
need
not
to,
even
a
who's running it,
person
but
needs
but
to
the
be
loudest
accountable, but
voices.
how?
Yeah.
Right? How?
Like,
Yeah.
I saw something yesterday. So there's a company called Blackmore's Vitamins in Australia,
Uh-huh.
and the CEO had come out and said, so I can't even remember what it was now. You know what? This is only a day or two ago, and I can't even see. This is how quickly the news cycle goes. I think it was. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was to do with a referendum we've got in Australia about putting Indigenous or like an extra part of Parliament, like Indigenous representation. How would I describe it? They want to add an Indigenous enshrined in the Constitution, an Indigenous advisory council as like a, well, they haven't
Mhm.
even really defined it. So there's strong views on both sides, and it's the main argument for the yes is they're saying we have to do this because it's Indigenous people should be having a say in Indigenous affairs, and the people who are saying no are saying, well, hang on, there's absolutely no detail about this. The politicians are just kind of going, hey, trust us. And the founder of this Blackmore's Vitamins, what he's done is he's come out and said that he personally, he's saying vote no, he's against it. And I think it'll be a fairly close
Mhm.
referendum. But as a result, all these activists have jumped on and cancelled Blackmore's.
Because of his
Don't buy it.
yeah.
So my reaction when I see that is just like, that's just become my new vitamin brand. If activists are going to go out and say, hey, cancel this because of a political opinion of a founder,
Mhm.
I'll
Well, it
react the other
depends.
way.
Is he using his vitamins? Is he using the vitamins to promote it?
Nope,
Then
not
why
not at all.
why? He's allowed his personal opinion. I kind of agree with you there. If he's not
Because
using
what
the
these people want to
company,
do is these people want to punish people for their
not
political
agreeing
opinion
with them. Yeah.
when it differs from usually an extreme view. This is a fairly, I think this is a fairly even. Like there's people on both sides of the argument, and like on the left and right, like who are
Mhm.
taking different stands on it. Probably the most left wing politician in the country came out and said that, who is an Indigenous person, said she doesn't support it and left the political party she was with because they do support it. Mind you, she's a lunatic who I wouldn't give too much credit to. But then you've got a lot of people on the right, including we've got an Indigenous senator from the Northern Territory saying this is divisive, it's racist, and there's no details to it. We don't want this, vote no. So, but it's somehow like the one side of the argument, or the extremists on one side of the argument, are basically painting the picture: if you don't vote for this, you're racist. So anyone who comes out and speaks against it, where they can,
if the Indigenous themselves are saying it's not the kind of thing we want, why would
it's split? It's split. It's so. Well, I guess I can do a bit of a TLDR. So what happened was there was a meeting of Indigenous leaders, of about 250 Indigenous leaders, where they called for what was known as the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which is where they said that there should be a treaty, or there should be some form of constitutional recognition of Indigenous people, because originally there was no constitutional recognition of Indigenous people in the Australian Constitution, which is because of issues to do with federation and state control. That the states basically had individual control of Indigenous affairs, but some states really, like, I can't emphasize how poorly Indigenous Australians have been treated. It was absolutely woeful. So there has been a move towards reconciliation, closing the gap, but what has tended to happen is it's kind of the argument, the discussions seem to have been overtaken by elite Indigenous leaders and don't necessarily represent the viewpoint of all Indigenous leaders. And the ones who have been vocal on this issue tend to be politically aligned one way. So they tend to be politically on the left. It's the government we've got in at the moment that's pushing it is a left-leaning, is left-wing government. It's the Labor government. But when I say left and right here in Australia, we're a lot more centred than you would be, say, in the US, because we've got compulsory voting, so it forces the centre into the political conversation. But so our Indigenous Affairs Minister is an Indigenous woman. She's an Indigenous woman from Sydney who's pushed it, and it seems to have initially it had pretty solid support, but then you had a few of the usual people who came out and said, no, we don't want it, who would tend to be viewed as I don't want to speak poorly of them, because I think they're portrayed poorly, but they're sort of portrayed in a way where they're seen as being racially divisive, and because they're sort of further
thinking
on the
it's
right.
just not good enough, and it's never going to settle anything. So why bother?
I don't think is accurate. But then a fairly prominent Indigenous senator from the Northern Territory, which for those who aren't familiar, the Northern Territory, I would estimate that it's probably about 70% Indigenous population. It's a huge Indigenous population. It's the least populated, well, not really state, but territory that we have. But they get their two senators. So Senator Price, she's come out very, very strongly against it, and just basically said this isn't going to fix any of the issues. And there's huge issues with crime in Indigenous.
Well, can I ask, when she came out against it, should she come out with an alternative, at least, like, to help promote why against it, and what would be better?
Yeah, well, what she said is that we need to get into the Indigenous communities and actually solve the problems on a local level. Because with the problem with this, with what they're proposing for the referendum, is there's no detail to it. So if you go and vote for it, there's actually not any.
Well, how can you vote for it if you don't know what you're voting for?
And that's the problem. And that's the problem.
But then it should fail. Absolutely, the people should fail it. Like the people putting it forward haven't done their job. Make them do their job.
The argument that they're saying is because it's being enshrined in the Constitution. So if we have a referendum, something is in the Constitution, it's there. That is like solid law. And what they're saying is, well, they want the Parliament to decide what that looks like, because the argument they're not making, but a few have sort of quietly been saying is, well, if it doesn't work, if the model that is initially put in doesn't work, we need to be able to change it to a different
a
model.
referendum can put the framework on what it's supposed to accomplish and actually
Absolutely.
and then they can actually legislate it for the accomplishment. I agree with that, but the referendum should at least say what you're voting for to accomplish, what actually, and you're saying it doesn't, it's not out there.
No, and essentially what the
They
politicians are
don't get a
saying is,
blank slate, like, here's a problem,
no.
go work on it any way you want. Like,
Well, what's
no.
happened is this government they've sort of come into power after we've had, I think it was 12 years of the previous government, and which
That's a
ended
good long run.
they ended
Yeah.
fairly in a fairly unpopular way. So they came in with a lot of momentum, a lot of power. They had, they've got complete control of the Parliament, or the upper house. Sorry, the lower house, the upper house, the Senate. There's still negotiation that has to go on, but they've come in with a lot of popularity. They've come in with this message of, we're doing it for Indigenous people, and the attitude of anyone who disagrees is a racist. So I think they expected it was just people would just vote for it. But because you've had these prominent Indigenous senators saying, well, we don't need an Indigenous voice to Parliament to be enshrined in the Constitution, because, hey, I'm here, I'm an Indigenous senator, I am a voice in the Parliament, and we've got Indigenous Australians who are in our Parliament.
In history, and you're big on history, and I know you this, when you actually separate the people and put people in power based on just something like that, it actually ends up to be harmful and the wrong. We've done it here in America, and it actually ends up not to work. It works fine for a while. You look at an undeserved, like, people that are being pushed against and they're not getting what they need, and they're being prejudiced against in some kind of way. So you try to elevate them back up in a different way than everybody else, and then eventually it does the opposite. It becomes unequal for everybody else too, and then that becomes the target. So that isn't, I agree with them. If you are in government already as an Indigenous person, you can work what needs to change from the inside on different bills and different issues. You don't need it in there. It should just be a flat out equality thing. If you want to do that, don't label it Indigenous.
And to me, it would make more sense to have, because I think it's 7 Indigenous members in our Parliament.
Out of how many? How big is your Parliament?
So there's 151 in the lower house, and I believe it's 76 in
and there's
the
only
upper house.
7 in all of that. That would say you do need more. I think you do need more.
Well, when you look at the actual population, though, I think the Indigenous population is around about 2%. So it's actually
okay. So then actually,
as far as a percentage goes, the representation within Parliament is higher than the actual representation. I should double check.
And that's good. But that's good, because then the problems, if they are addressed, they can be addressed. But what you're saying is there are a lot of problems that need to be heard, and it's just not coming forward. There's nobody working on it. Is that why they want this referendum, to force people to work on it?
Well, I think the people who are wanting to bring it through have got good intentions. I think that there is a bit of that. The only problem is, I think that, like a lot of things, it gets hijacked by people with their own political motives, and certainly the Indigenous leaders who are pushing it tend to be, aligned with the Labor Party, and there is a fear that, well, this will just be an additional House of Parliament potentially that could that will always just be politically one way. There's also the questions too. Okay, well, if there is this voice to Parliament, who's eligible? I mean, what percentage of Aboriginality do you need to have? I mean, we've got people here who are like, if you saw them, they do not look in any way, shape, or form Indigenous. I've got a good mate of mine who he claims Indigenous. He is Indigenous, I guess, but I mean, that Indigenous is 1/8. I mean, technically, I think if I go back enough generations, I can find it. Do I count? And then who can vote? How do you prove who's Indigenous and who's not? And there's a fear that, what it will come down to is who the certain Indigenous leaders say is Indigenous. And there does seem to be within some of these communities a hierarchy. And Jacinta Price, who's the senator from the Northern Territory who's speaking out against it, she made a very good point when she said, well, this the Uluru Statement that was made, that was the meeting of the Indigenous leaders, she said, I actually speak with the authority of my grandfather, who was the leader of this tribe. He passed the authority on to me to speak on behalf of the tribe, and I wasn't invited. So
wow,
who is getting invited? So it's really, it's messy. So I mean, for me, I if it were to, as it stands right now, I'll be voting no.
right.
And I'm someone who has studied history. I am very, very big on Indigenous rights and closing gaps within. We've got rural Indigenous communities that are just woeful, absolutely woeful.
I know
We have
it's obvious that people want to help, but I agree. If there's not if the referendum is, there's nothing there for you to actually vote for. Why? I would see that the normal vote would be no. And it's not that you're voting against the Indigenous people; you're voting against a plan that's not going to work, or giving too much power for them to do whatever in there they want, which could end up hurting them. And you don't want to hurt anybody either.
To correct myself from earlier as well, there's actually 11 Indigenous representatives in our parliament.
Well, that's a good number then. That's well over the 2% of the population. That's almost like if you have, I think you had counted up almost 200 and something odd people. That's a good, like more than 5. It's a good number of representation. You got more representation than you have percentage of the population. That's good.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. It's 3.2%. So 3.2% of the population, according to the 2021 census, is Indigenous. But there's a lot of Indigenous people, I guess, like my friend who's 1/8 and is as white as any white person. Yeah, I look at it this way: if you're 1/8 Indigenous, you're 7/8 something else. So
well, with that kind of representation, even with allowing by another percentage or so, you're still well represented. And I'm not saying that that's going to solve anything. It doesn't, not unless they bring the actual issues forward and can do something about it. But I don't think a referendum without a guideline is a good thing. Like in any issue,
and it's not, and that's the thing, and that's the interesting thing that's happened with this. I guess getting back to the founder of Blackmores, he's come out and said no. He's voting no, and there's plenty of people. I mean, it's like any political debate, especially when Twitter's involved. Some people have one side, some people have the other. But what's happened is because he's a prominent name, and they've sort of gone, hang on, that's a familiar name. Oh, he's the founder of the vitamin company. Cancel. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's. I think that, look, and I'm a big believer that people should be able to purchase and consume any product that they choose, or they shouldn't have to any product that they choose, and that's fine. And if someone goes, oh, I don't like his opinion, so I'm going to not purchase, that's fine. But when you get a mob that is there trying to cancel and damage the business, all because of a political opinion. And we're not talking an extreme political opinion.
And how did his political opinion come out? What platform? What did he do that made it well known that this is what he thinks?
I think it was on Twitter. I mean, I saw it was trending on Twitter, cancel Blackmores, and I'm like, why are we?
So as an individual, not as
an individual. No, as an individual. Look, I don't think companies should get involved in politics.
No, I don't think they should either.
It's not their place, and I'll say that on both sides.
I would call that undue influence. That would call that squashing the unpopular opinion, or trying to use might to silence voices. Like I don't go with that. But it sounds like he said it as an individual. Like
he did, and I'll put a disclaimer on this. If a company is a private company that where it's owned by someone and they express a political opinion, or that company donates to people based on that's fine. I have no issue with that. But where you've got public companies, and Qantas is a big example. Most people have heard of Qantas, Australia's airline. Qantas have become I'll call them a woke pandering company. Now, I think that people within Qantas are entitled to have whatever opinion they want. But Qantas is a public company. I own shares in Qantas. I am not happy with. I'm actually selling my shares in Qantas, but I'm not happy with the direction that they take. Their views of that company that I own a very small part of don't represent me. And I don't think it's the place of companies to come out and make these claims. It's just simply not. What right does a company have to tell half of their employees or a percentage of their employees that their opinion is wrong, or that they have to prescribe to a certain political thought? And look, some things where I think it's social issues, okay, I guess I can understand a bit. But even then, even on social issues I agree with, I don't think they should get involved. A great example, once again, I'll go with Qantas, was when we had the vote on same-sex marriage in Australia. Now, I voted for same-sex marriage. That was, to me, that was a no-brainer and non-negotiable. And the majority of the country agreed, and that's why it happened. But it wasn't the place for Qantas to come out and publicly declare that position. It's a public company. It is not their position to, regardless of whether I agree with the opinion or not. Now, what people do as an individual, so where the CEO of Qantas comes out and says, hey, this is a position I, as an individual, support, cool. That is absolutely, they're entitled to do that. Your position in the company doesn't stop you from having political opinion. Well, but then when you start doing that, but even when there was an issue with a footballer called Israel Folau, who he posted a Bible verse, and it was a stupid Bible verse saying that if you are he had a list of things that had included, they had about 10 things, and it was like atheist, thief, liar, fornicator, and they had homosexual on there. You are going to hell. You need to repent. I think it was you need to repent or you'll go to hell. And then with a Bible verse underneath it, which unfortunately, and I disagree with that kind of stuff, is pretty stock standard Christian behaviour. But the company, Qantas, who was sponsoring the Australian Wallabies rugby team, essentially threatened to pull their sponsorship unless he was sacked. And I don't agree with that. I think Israel Folau did the wrong thing.
I think it's a double-edged sword, because I see where you're coming from. You don't want it misused. But I do actually think that a company, based on a product, in a mission statement, and a face, every company has a face, business, okay? You have things that you represent. I can see why they wouldn't want to align with something that's going to damage them in the long run. And in that case, I think advertisers and companies that are going into these things, especially in sports, if they're going to align with them, and there are things that they're going to be coming out there publicly to damage them, they have every right to say, okay, but if he's going to be talking like that, I can't be here. I think they have that right.
Hey,
I do.
I actually don't disagree with that. And funnily enough, at the time it all happened, I was very, very critical of. In fact, I think the first ever six pack I did, we spoke about Israel Folau and why he was an idiot.
Because here's the other side of it. He chose to say it. That's his contract. Okay. He put himself at risk with the belief that may be going against his own contract, which probably has it there. Please don't represent yourself in any way that's going to damage our sports organization or whatever. I mean, but he chose to do that. So those consequences, and also the organization's consequences, that's what happens. Your advertisers are going to say, like, if you stand behind that, I'm feeling like this. And
well, I mean, realistically, he was going to be stood down anyway. But what should have happened was he should have been given the opportunity to clarify. And all that happened was they came out against it as a company very quickly and publicly. And what happened was it forced him to double down.
And absolutely, often that's because of how quickly things turn. In companies don't actually respond quick enough.
I probably used a bad example there, because I don't disagree actually that when someone's putting their brand,
that's okay. It looks good for me. The whole chat just thinks I turned you again. That's two for Claire.
Damn it, Claire! You and your reasonable arguments.
I do. You know
don't
what?
You know anything? People are not allowed to have reasonable arguments and discussions.
This is why I'm undefeated.
We have to fight.
This is why I'm undefeated in debate, because I don't actually debate. I actually reasonably get you to see it from my
actually. You know what? Yeah. I think actually from that point, I think I was wrong there. I think I was wrong there.
No, don't say that. No,
And it's
don't say
probably
that.
because I've probably got a
No,
bit of a bias
you know
against
what?
the
It's
company
because
because they keep involving
cancel
themselves.
culture itself incites riot within you. So I can understand like the whole situation. I really do understand where you're coming from because
Oh, look,
here he is. All he
I
did
get my
was say how
back
he
up.
felt about something, and his whole
Mm,
everything gets all blown up, and everybody's
mm.
piling on him and this and that. He doesn't even get the opportunity to clarify what he meant or do anything. And
And look,
it's how quick it all happens,
having
you know.
been a former, in my previous life as a former Christian leader,
Hmm.
I understand where he was coming from, where it's a stand, and all he did it was literally a meme that he shared. It's like one of
Hmm.
those standard things that you see a million of on the internet,
He
and it's
lost his
just because
contract for a meme.
he lost his contract from a meme, yeah,
Mhm.
and was essentially banned from sports in the country. He was persona non grata. Like he was just yeah,
Wow.
it was insane. He was I think the overreaction did more damage than anything. But what I mean, look, it was but as a person with a public profile, it was wrong what he did.
Mhm.
He should have he, he probably shouldn't have done it. But as someone who's been in that position before, I kind of understood what he was saying, and what he was essentially saying was, "Hey, here's a list of there was about 10 things on there," and I kind of got my back up that I'm thinking, well, hang on, there's 10 things on there, and the one thing that's been picked at is the political issue that this company happens to, and that was what everyone was wanting to cancel him over, saying he was homophobic. I'm thinking, well, he's anti-atheist as well. He's also anti-thief. He's just
Mhm.
listed a stack of things, or this meme listed a stack of things and said, if you don't repent, you go to hell. Which is, what that's what Christians believe. That's what people of religion believe. If you sin, you could go to hell unless you repent. That's been a standard belief in
Mhm.
religion for a long time.
Right.
Now, I disagree with that. I
Mhm.
definitely
And
disagree
you
with that.
think he would have a right as a personal person to actually post that if he wants, if
Yeah.
that's his belief. But it does come, all our beliefs come with consequence,
I
especially if
mean,
you,
it's not like
yeah.
he's gone out and used a derogatory term and
Well,
said,
true and I, but
or
you and I
or
know, like,
whatever.
just take
Yeah.
Twitter for example. No matter what you put on Twitter, you or I, because we're
Oh
out
yeah.
here talking, we're going to get judged on it no matter what. There's going to be
Oh yeah.
somebody coming from somewhere that's going to either twist it or interpret it into something else or make a big deal about it or whatever. And so you have to kind of own it, like, you do. So, like, he must have known some risk on it. I do think he's entitled to his belief, and I don't think they should have piled on him. My point was only that companies do have a right not to be represented a certain way. If his sports organization was backing him, going at people and, attacking certain types of individuals or going against equality or going against any subject that's going to put them all in a harmful light as far as bringing on a lot of drama and heat and having people not buy their products, they're allowed to. But he's also allowed to have his personal opinion. Maybe he just shouldn't have put it on Twitter or wherever he did, because somebody's going to blow it up if they know who you are. Somebody's
Oh
going to,
yeah. And look, I think it was a fairly innocent thing where he's
yeah.
literally just
It's
shared.
a shame they
And
didn't
look,
do the
we
right
have
thing and give him the opportunity to walk it back and say, that's a personal belief that has nothing to do with my sports organization or anyone else,
no. Well,
period.
straight away, what happened was the Australian Christian lobby latched onto him like there was no tomorrow, and made him
Well,
the
that's a
poster
problem because
child.
now you got opposing sides pulling them
Yeah.
like a
So you
wishbone.
had the
Yeah.
extremists from both. And I've actually
Mhm.
met this guy before, and he's actually a very soft-spoken guy. He's in rugby or rugby league in Australia. We have a lot of Pacific Islanders, and look, it's because of the way that the nature of the sport, of rugby
Mhm.
union or rugby league, and the way that naturally Pacific Islanders are built, they tend to thrive in the game. It's but the Pacific Islanders have got they're very deeply religious communities, like insanely, very conservative. They often will keep to themselves and they're very private about it. But um, where they're challenged, or where their the religious position is challenged, they will stand their ground. They won't sort of bend or bow to social pressure. We actually had an example last year of a football team, a rugby league team, and it's a team that I hate,
Mhm.
but for some reason the team decided that they were going to have a pride jersey.
Oh.
Now, this is a team where half of the team are Pacific Islanders from very religious backgrounds, and they they dropped it on the team almost in the week that this was coming up. And a lot of these Pacific Islander players said, look, all respect, and we're not going to judge anyone, but we're not going to wear this jersey, and we're not going to promote this because it's a lifestyle that disagrees with our religious belief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I disagree with their religious belief 100%, but they all basically stood down, and half the team stood down. They had to bring in players from everywhere and anywhere. And I had issue with them having the pride jersey, but I had issue with it for a different reason, not because of, I think if a team wants to have a pride jersey, yes, talk to the players, get everyone on board, especially where you've got a sport that's made up by a lot of people who are Pacific Islanders from deeply religious communities where there's consequences to them personally. But they actually did this during what we call the Women in League round, which is a round that is had every year to celebrate women and the participation of women in the game, whether it's from women who are playing to coaching to the mums who are taking their kids to sport, or running the canteens and just being involved. It's a round that is had every year to celebrate women in league, and that's when they chose to do it. And I just thought, well, that's actually poor form. If they're going to do it another week, because a lot of the teams, like my team, they're a team, they've got a white jersey with a big red V in the middle of it, and what they'll do for the women in league round is they'll change it to a pink. They'll change it to a pink V, for the women, and usually what will happen is the proceeds or the profits from jerseys sold, or what happens that round will go to a lot of women's charities, mainly to do with breast cancer research, domestic violence, and just then putting money back into the game for women. And rugby league is like, for us, it's
that is such a perfect example of when you get something you think is the right thing to do, and you want to be inclusive, right? Like them wanting to do that pride jersey was to make that an inclusive gesture and like reach out and speak up for equality, be really inclusive. And while they do it, they narrow their focus so much and they forget where they are and what it's going to affect, and they actually end up excluding whole large groups of people and make it even more difficult on the group that you're trying to be inclusive to. Do you see what I mean? Like you're making it like a us versus thing then, because you didn't take the time to figure, you didn't read the room, which is a favorite saying of mine. And it goes for like the subject, the issue. You got to look at it from all sides to make sure that when what you're actually representing, that you want your goal to pour forward is supportive by what you're doing. Because although it might have started as a good idea, it failed miserably.
And interestingly enough, and this is where it comes back to, I think, the point you made earlier about the the company should be able to choose who they associate with. Well, funnily enough, in this case, the players who are deeply religious should have been consulted. That's
what I mean. They didn't read the room. They completely excluded the people they were depending on to support the issue. Because you can't have a bunch of people who aren't really on the team wearing those jerseys to represent the team and have it mean the same thing. Okay, so here they made a team decision in a bubble without the team is what happened. And that's what I mean. When you're trying to do something good and you forget to read the room, you need to make sure you're not going to have it set up that you're not excluding a large base of
and ironically, the consequence for this team was they were a team who they were sitting just in the level to make the finals or the playoffs, as you'd put it in the US. They didn't win a game after that. They lost. They bombed out. The season was over.
And it could have been addressed without making the issue that the members didn't necessarily want to represent pride in any way. They could have actually come forward with other suggestions besides the jersey that they all were forced to wear, that they could actually let the team know that we want to be inclusive, we want to celebrate pride, but we also want to have our individualism. Like don't dress them in the costume, but let the team actually make a statement as the team if they want to, but it doesn't affect them individually. But when you put a jacket on them individually and force them to say wear the colors, so to speak, without their choice, without them weighing in. And I'm saying, like, common sense, you would think everybody would be all supportive of no one being excluded. That it's not really harmful to support pride, because when it comes down to your religious belief, it's not doing anything to you personally. Let them do, like, let them live, let them do what they want to do.
And that was the attitude of these footballers. They said, look, we're not telling people what they can or cannot do with their life. We've got our belief, based on religious and cultural reasons, and we just can't promote it. We're not telling people not to do it.
But because of the type of organization it is, they're going to be forced to promote it if they were there, because of what they were going to make them wear. And I kind of understand that issue. So then it's a contract violation. It gets all messy. It's just because they didn't read the room. Had they had one conversation
and
with the whole team,
the real reason they're doing it, it wasn't as some, it wasn't going to. I mean, it's gay rights are very well established in this country.
It's not even about that.
We were having a gay and lesbian Mardi Gras before Pride marches were even a thing in America. Like, this is we are a country where we're very open and accepting. So there's no issues there. It's not like it's this big political statement that's going to change the world and save everyone. It was, in all honesty, it was a virtue signal. That's primary goal. It was developed by the marketing department of that football club.
And
it was designed to sell jerseys. It was designed to sell.
It was but if they had just talked, they could have come up with a compromise. I'm sure everybody could have come up with a compromise, and they could have still marketed something.
Yeah, ironically, they have come up with it looks like a compromise now, where they've suggested, well, what if we were to have a respect round or a respect jersey where we respect people of all viewpoints,
and have one letter,
and the people who are most vocal against the pride jersey have gone, hey, yeah, we're in for that. That's cool. We'll get right behind that.
True, because look at that. You take the letters of respect. You make one letter pink for, like, women or these issues. You make one letter, the rainbow colors. You make one, actually, the symbol, like, put some kind of religious thing in there for people, and then one for atheists, or anything you want, you could use with the letters of respect, and just say, without saying, like, don't be picking people out and persecuting them for anything. Period. Like, period. Yeah. You see, but there was a compromise. If they had read the room, there was a compromise there to be had. Nobody necessarily wanted to die on that hill, but they all had to, didn't they, Chris? You know why? They didn't talk. They didn't talk to each other.
That's the problem. When people don't talk and have reasonable conversation, or when people just go, well, if you disagree with this, you're a homophobic, evil. And these guys are saying, look, we're not homophobic. We don't care what people do. We know people who are gay.
You can't force me to agree.
We're just not going to promote it.
Right.
And by the same, look, I've got an attitude where, and I'm certainly not a footballer by any means or an elite sports person. My opinion on people who are religious, say Christians. I got no problems with them. People can believe whatever they want. I disagree with a lot of the viewpoints. That is absolutely fine. Power to you. I've got friends who are religious. It's cool. Believe what you want. You do you. But if someone asked me to wear a jersey that had Jesus saves on it, I'm probably going to go, no, I'm not going to,
because I don't believe it.
I'm happy to respect your point of view. I'm not going to promote it.
But I need to be genuine to myself. Like, I have respect enough for you to stay me at all times, so that you can know who I am and where I'm coming from. I'm not wearing that jersey because I don't believe that. That's what you believe. Right. But I'm not going to say you can't wear it. That's the point. I'm not going to make fun of them for wearing it. I'm not going to do it. Like, they can wear it because that's their belief. But don't ask me to wear it when I don't believe it. It's not fair.
And it's like, literally it goes both ways. The week of the game is when they've dropped and they've gone, yeah, we've got this, the pride. And really, there wasn't much on it, but it was the way that they really handled it poorly. And then the owner of the club just basically came out and said, no, well, if they don't wear it, they won't be playing, and kind of insinuated that the players might be sacked, but then had to very quickly change his mind when he realised that more than half the team would be sitting out. And then when they tried to bring in players from the juniors to, like, the reserve teams to come up, that was fine. They named all these players, and half of them went, no, we're not.
We're not wearing it either. Yeah, so they had even more.
They ended up having, like, the it was just the team was just that they had in the end was a couple
Well, they
of
made
the
it an issue that it didn't have to be, because now they're forcing them to say whether they support something or not. And it wasn't that they didn't even support it. It's just that they didn't want to be told how to, or to what degree, actually.
Exactly. Now we've kind of gone over time.
Okay.
It was originally meant to be an hour. We've just about hit the hour and a half. So
that always happens with us.
It does. It does. It's always good conversations. One important question I am going to ask you, Claire. Will you come back and do this again with me?
Anytime you want, Chris. Just we'll just talk. And as long as I'm not doing one of mine, I'll definitely be here doing one of yours.
We are going to organise it. Now, for those who, wherever you're listening or watching, however you're engaging with this, Claire's links are down below. I will be putting the link to the murder trial, the murder.
Let me just say, I couldn't do it justice. If he gave me 5 hours, I could not have got you all up to speed. It was just impossible, even as fast
I'm definitely
as I talk.
going to go and have a look at what I can now. Well, maybe not right now, but I'll probably watch the Netflix documentary later tonight.
You know what I would say? And there's one on Low Country that's not even that long. That's actually pretty a little different. It's got some of the lawyers in it and stuff like that. There's two. The one on Netflix, and there's one on Low Country. And actually, I may be able to email you, or send me a Twitter with an email that'll take like a Google Drive link or something. I could send you the other two documentaries too. Probably more fun than listening to trial transcripts.
We'll work it out. I'll send that, and we'll get all the links posted. So everyone who has been a part of this journey, so this is the first episode. So this will kind of look. There's going to be a bit of trial and error as to what this podcast or vodcast or whatever kind of cast is, that this HereticalsCast, the shape it takes, there's going to be a little bit of trial and error. I think we're just going to kind of work out the format as we go. Essentially, it's just going to be these one-on-one conversations, talking about topical things. It could kind of go anywhere. We'll generally have a bit of an idea of where it's going to start and finish, but it's just going to be wherever the conversation kind of leads. I mean, we went from an American murder trial to a vote on Indigenous reformation in the Australian referendum to then cancel culture and sporting teams and pride jerseys.
These are my kind of conversations. That's why I'm so excited for you. I really love to see more of this on YouTube. Definitely. Hey, Garys.
The plan is at this stage to sort of, at least sort of 2 or 3 times a week. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking with Isaiah, who is the host of the RHE podcast. Some of those who have been on the channel before or who are familiar with Hereticals will know of Isaiah, also known as Dr. Evil from time to time. We've had an interesting.
He's quite the chap, though. He can take it. He's got a sense of humor.
He is, and where it's interesting is he's a Christian who's on the left. I'm an atheist who's on the right. We always have interesting.
It's kind of funny that the two of you.
We're not going to be talking about. We're not talking about religion tomorrow. I've said.
Wow. What are you guys going to talk about?
Well, see, he's an interesting guy who he's an American who is living in South Korea. He married a South Korean woman, got a South Korean child. So I actually want to have a good conversation with him about what his experience is as I guess someone from a Western culture living in an Eastern culture. How he finds it. Just what his experience is. So I think there's an interesting conversation to have there. So I'll definitely that conversation will definitely happen. I have just seen something in the chat I do want to address. How's Jay doing? Last time I spoke to Jay, look, he's been having a bit of a rough time of things, but he's getting there. He's getting there. I guess that's probably what I would say. So a lot of love to Jay. I miss Jay. I miss the conversation. I used to talk to Jay every day, and I deeply miss Jay. But he is going through some stuff at the moment, and I think one of the challenges when you're online is if I was in the same vicinity as Jay, I could jump in a car and just go and see him and sit with him and just talk to him, just go and knock on his door, go and take him out for a coffee. Because of the distance involved, it's hard. It's hard to kind of get in touch, and it is a challenge to be there for a friend.
Yeah, even here in the States, he's so far away.
It's but look, hopefully Jay's got good people around him, and that's the main thing. He's got really good people around him. Raven is sensational. She's an amazing woman. But I do deeply miss Jay. So hopefully, I can get Jay on for a chat at some point soon and start to do some more stuff with Jay, because I mean, this was at one stage, this channel was Hereticals was as much Jay as it was me.
Like, it was conspiracies on Wednesdays.
Yeah, it was like he was hosting shows. We were doing a lot of stuff together.
We had so much fun. We did Raelians together. Remember, we did Nexium for weeks. He really loved conspiracies and cults, and he had that true crime bug too. He like really pushed and inspired me to start doing more of it. We did it for a while, and I think everybody misses Jay. He's a solid voice out here.
He's an absolute legend. I love him. I genuinely love the man. Look, hopefully, I wish I could give more of an update. This is a reminder to me, actually, to send him a message and say, hey, how you going? He said to me that he does, well, last time we spoke, he said, he doesn't speak, but he is listening. So there's every chance that Jay is here and listening now. And if you are, Jay, man, I love you. I just want you to know that. I love you.
Yes, we do. We miss you. If you're listening, Jay, we miss you. We miss you so much. Well, yeah.
But anyway, so tomorrow it'll be Isaiah, Dr. Evil. We'll be talking about South Korea. There was a couple of things I did want to talk about today that I'd sort of said to you.
Well, we could save them for the next one, because they were pretty. We'll see where they are. I remember what they are.
We're going to have a chat about a few things, but we might say I might even try and hoax you back in maybe next week. I know that I've got Steve McRae on later in the week. My chats with Steve are always really interesting.
Deep.
They're deep. Steve, he loves his philosophy. I know absolutely sweet fuck all about philosophy. It is just not my thing. But I enjoy learning about philosophy from Steve. And he's someone who, he when he's got a viewpoint, he's like a dog with a bone. He will fight and fight and fight for that. He doesn't give an inch of ground. And I respect that. I don't always agree with him, but I respect it. But we always have good conversation. Like me and him, he will fight with everyone. Like he will just, but me and him always seem to have a good, respectful conversation. Where often we'll disagree on things, but we kind of respect the other viewpoint. We understand the other viewpoint. I think so long as there's intellectual honesty, I think it's all good. Next week, I have lined up, I believe, for my Wednesday, which will be US Thursday. I have lined up John Hamill. He's coming on.
He's lovely too.
Talk about a really cool Irish guy, loves a whiskey. I have no doubt he'll have had a few whiskeys when we're chatting, which kind of bums me. I'll be doing it at midday because I'd have one with him, but I've got to go pick up kids.
Never say never. You guys got me drinking cognac in my coffee after a few 6-packs. So
I know, but I've got to drive and pick up kids from school, and I don't think showing up to the school with
no, you don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do that.
But we're actually be talking. I say I won't be talking about religious, but we're actually going to be talking about the takeover and the coup that happened at Atheist Alliance International, and he's been someone who's been really
I've been following
on
that. Like he's been
that's
on
that's
quite
an
a few
interesting
channels.
story. Yeah, about an organization that was essentially kind of taken over, like fairly nefariously taken over. And
did you say that was in the evening for America or Scotland?
So that'll be 8 p.m. next Wednesday, I think, in America. I'll be posting the times. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm going to try to follow that one. I've been following that with Barry and him and Seamus in the profit.
And it's the kind of thing where it's just you think, all right, we're just at a resolution with this thing, and then the next like this is something that it's just been going on for like 5 years, and some of the dodgy stuff that has happened, and just like the objective lies that have come out from some of the people who have been involved in this thing. It's insane. It is absolutely so that's going to be a really interesting conversation, but I will be posting that. Now, the only thing tomorrow will be a little bit different. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern in the US as opposed to the 8 p.m. And that's just because of time zone things. It's sort of
the one with Isaiah. Yeah.
Yeah, with it's and this is the thing. I mean, for me, it's the middle of the day, so I'm pretty good. But for Isaiah, he's in South Korea, so it's just that time for him works better. And yeah, I guess there's a little bit of experimenting with the time and seeing what happens. So look, everyone who's been here, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Wherever you are, if you haven't subscribed already, give us a subscribe. Hit the notification so you can see when we've got these shows coming up. Give us a try. That's all I ask. Give us a try. If it's for you, fantastic. If it's not, well, you know what? It costs you nothing to subscribe. And if you don't like it, you can always turn the notification bell off or unsubscribe or whatever you do. But look, the goal is to have different and interesting conversations on a regular basis. Not every conversation is going to be for everyone, but I hope to have enough variety in there that whoever's listening or watching, there's going to be at least something for you once a week.
Exactly.
Hopefully. So look, all I'm saying is give us a try.
I'm just so excited you're going to be out here more often. We have missed you.
I'm
It's going to be great.
I missed this. I missed it. It's just it's been really, I mean, I want to do 6-pack, but Friday nights are a bit funny for me at the moment. Friday nights are tricky, so that's why there hasn't been 6-pack, because that just used to be my Friday night social thing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But,
when you go back and look at the chat, I think you're going to be able to tell who are my crew and who aren't. Like, totally.
Oh yeah.
They already brought up alien members and stuff. Like, it's bad.
Look, you know, I'm going to make it a goal within the next week to discuss that at least once.
At least one. I'll come back.
I'm rewatching the X-Files with my oldest. So it's I'm sure that I can get the X-Files, and it's I guess we'll work it out. There's a few people who I think are aliens in the world, so maybe
we should come up with a test on how we can test who's more alien than not.
There's a challenge there. I
feel
like there's a challenge there. So we'll work it out. Everyone, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Thank you, especially to you, Claire, for being a part of number 1.
Oh gosh, Chris, thank you. This was the first place that you let me use my laugh and my humor, but also show everybody that I could actually have something to say on an issue. It's been quite the ride since then. I love it.
We've only just begun. This is the journey will continue, and we'll definitely do this again very soon. Thank you, everyone, and wherever you are on this wonderful planet, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Catch you all later.
Bye.